I am a welding instructor with Northern Lakes College, and welcome to our virtual open house. So what is welding? Welding is a joining together of metal by heating the surfaces to the point of melting using a torch, an electric arc, or other means, and fusing the pieces together. So basically, we're melting steel together using electricity and fusing it together to make it one solid piece. There are over 90 different welding processes. So GMAW, or gas metal arc welding, GTAW, gas tungsten arc welding, SMAW, shielded metal arc welding, FCAW, flux core arc welding, SAW, submerged arc welding, MCAW, metal core arc welding, OAC, OAW, which are oxy-fuel processes, laser welding, plasma welding, friction stir welding, explosion welding, stud welding, resistance welding, and many, many more. So the main ones that we teach here at Northern Lakes College for all 3 years of apprentice are going to be your GMAW, your GTAW, your SMAW, and your FCAW. And then your oxyacetylene stuff. And there's many more. Laser welding and robot welding are becoming prevalent in all different types of industry. So things are always expanding in terms of technology for welding. So there's structural welding. So this, I believe, is a business in downtown Calgary. So you can see the intricate patterns on the triangles in front of the windows of the building, and also the head is actually a big sculpture that is fairly big. I believe in the next slide you'll see people standing inside of it. Yeah, so that's how big it is. There's a person standing in the doorway. And this is just some of the stuff you can do with welding. It's not all just building things for consumers. There's lots of room in welding for artistic expression. In the construction industry, so this is just a picture of some of the construction going up on the new Rogers Place Arena in Edmonton, where the Oilers play. So anytime a building is being erected, there's going to be welders in there working on stuff for sure. Fabrication and repair shops. This slide is a little bit blurry, but this just shows the typical setup of a regular welding shop. Agriculture, so pretty big in our area. Lots of farmers and ranchers around the area. Welders are always doing repairs on farm equipment. Offshore work. So this is a slide of a big offshore drilling rig platform. It's being moved with the barge underneath, but there are welders that work on these things 24/7. Pretty much everything on that whole platform is made out of some form of steel or stainless steel. So any repairs would have to be done by welders. Next, shipbuilding. So building the big ships and even smaller boats. A lot of this would be done with different welding processes, depending on whether the boat's made out of aluminum or out of regular steel. Bridge building. So any welded components on here, from the I-beams and girders and different gussets and support brackets, welders will be working on putting up bridges as well. And the lumber industry, another one that's pretty prevalent in our region. Lots of lumber trucks and lots of different companies out there. Their equipment is always in need of repair, whether it's the trucks that are hauling the logs to the skidders and the bunchers and the excavators that they use for harvesting trees. Gas and oil, another one that used to be a lot bigger in our area, but there's still lots of work in there. So you can see there, the left hand of the slide, they have a couple of service rigs Welders find lots of work on the drilling rigs and the service rigs. Anything that breaks on there is steel and has to be repaired by a welder. And then on the right-hand side of the picture, you have a couple guys, looks like they're welding a 3-foot pipe in some sort of pipeline system. Petrochemicals. So any place where they deal with oil and gas refining, separating crude oil, all of this stuff is made out of stainless steel and mild steel. So these whole entire plants, everything would be built by boilermakers and welders. And then all the maintenance to keep these plants running, again, a lot of that work will be done by welders. Oil sands and mining. So out in Fort McMurray, we have the oil sands, and mining those oil sands and trying to get the bitumen out of the sand and get it separated. Again, all of this heavy equipment, any industry that uses heavy equipment, stuff like cranes, you can see the rock truck here and the big excavator, the plant and all the piping systems. Anytime that stuff breaks down or whenever that stuff is originally being built, it's all going to be done by welders. Food and pharmaceuticals. So anywhere where they're making food, food products to sell in the grocery stores, their plants, and a lot of their tools that they use for mixing and separating, dehydrating, all that good stuff, that's all going to be handled by welders too. Most of the time when you're dealing with food and pharmaceuticals, you're going to be dealing with stainless steel and aluminum products. Then we have wind tower operations. So in southern Alberta, this is becoming really popular. They're putting up all kinds of these wind towers, windmills, and they are trying to replace natural gas and non-renewable resources with this renewable resources. So again, all of these things are made out of different types of steel, and any repairs would need to be done by welders. Aerospace Technology. So the guys that build airplanes as well as spaceships, a lot of this stuff is done with GTAW welding. Usually you're dealing with aircraft aluminum, sometimes stuff like titanium. And again, all of this stuff is done from welding. Underwater welding. So this is an interesting one. A lot of times on these offshore drilling rigs, like you can see in the top left of the picture there, they will have the platforms and all of the supports underneath the water, any piping systems underneath the water. You actually have a welder go down there. He uses a special type of welding rod, and he'll have on scuba equipment for diving. So he'll actually be diving, and he'll spend his time underwater fixing any pipes, anything that needs fixing underneath the water. They also use underwater welding a lot on the big cruise ships. Anytime there's anything that needs to be welded, they'll send the underwater welders underneath, and they'll get it done while they're parked in port. Next, we got robotics. So this is a really big one. A lot of things are going to robotics just because it's a fully automatic process. So you can program everything into a computer, clamp your metal pieces in place that need to be welded. You hit the start button, and the computer lets the robot arm know what to weld. Really popular because you don't have to worry about the heat when you're actually holding a welding gun. You are directly affected by the heat coming off of the weld. With this, basically you need an operator to run the computer and to make sure that everything is operating the way it's supposed to operate. Medical devices. So pacemaker generators, the little electrodes, the electrode patches, all of this stuff would be put together with welding. A lot of times it might be soldering, which is another form of welding. And then art. This is a Chinese imperial water dragon. I can't remember the name of the artist off the top of my head, but the artist spent, I think, if I remember correctly, 18 months making this piece. He hand polished and cut every single scale and every single individual piece on this. So again, welding, there's lots of room for creative and artistic expression. There are a lot of people who make a pretty good money on side projects doing art stuff like this. It could be fancy gates, it could be sculptures like this one, it could be horseshoe art. There's all kinds of room for artistic expression as a welder. And women in welding. So women in welding, when you get into your apprenticeship programs, there are actually grants for women. I believe you can get up to $3,000 for each year of your trade training, as a grant. So every time after you finish your first year, you can apply and receive a $3,000 grant. Finish your second year, another $3,000 grant, and then the third year as well. So that's just a little incentive to try and get more women involved in the trade. I personally have worked with probably 4 or 5 female welders in my lifetime, and female welders usually have a really steady hand, are able to make really nice welds, and it's not really the kind of job that is harder depending on whether you're a man or a woman. I've seen women that are very successful in the trade, and they really enjoy the work that they're doing. Apprenticeship training at NLC. So this is just, on the left is a picture of the actual shop here at Northern Lakes College in Slave Lake. And there's an instructor in there with a class of, from the looks of it, they're probably first year or second year welders. And then on the right hand side there, that's a picture of some of the projects they're doing in class as part of your ILM learning modules. And then our last slide here, any questions? So if you have any questions about the programming, I'll try and help you answer as much as I can to the best of my knowledge. So if